Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Mainhart, and I am the Outreach Coordinator here at the Alpha Center for Divorce Mediation. Today, our guest is Mike Routh, who is an attorney mediator with the Alpha Center, and he's going to talk a little bit about our mediation program, the Alpha Center Mediation Program, versus other organizations that also promote a mediation program. So I'm going to actually turn this over to Mike and let him start to discuss with all of you what the big differences are.
Thanks, Barbara. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me here today. I think one of the big questions that people have is that they look for this quick and easy way to get through the divorce process, and a lot of the times mediation gets associated with that, as the cheap and easy alternative. And I think what you'll find is that people will falsely advertise for that. They'll offer you these services at a deeply discounted rate. And what you have to remember, just because it's quick and easy doesn't necessarily mean that it's good.
Mhm.
What you find out is that a lot of these places you'll fall into these potholes where what you're paying for isn't necessarily what you're getting, and down the road, you'll have to circle back and spend more money anyway
Mhm.
to get to your final resolution.
Okay, so you're saying then that, people kind of take at face value whatever they're reading as far as how fast and how inexpensively they can get through their divorce versus how well it is constructed so that they don't have to go back to the court system or to an attorney.
Right. Our program here at Alpha, is we take into consideration all the things that you will need to provide that protection for you. So you're not going to get any surprises, once you think that it's done. And unfortunately, somebody shows up at your doorstep, telling you different.
Mm.
Um, the way that our program's set up is to, minimize your costs, but while still offering that same value. Um, that'll get you through the whole thing, starting with the custody agreement, the equitable distribution, and then that information would go into this marital settlement agreement, which does provide that legal and financial protection for you going forward.
And so it sounds to me like you're saying that a lot of the other services um, tend to focus on quick and easy, but then it's kind of piecemeal where you're having to say, oh, well, now I have to add this in, or now I have to add that in, and that our Alpha program tends to be uh, a lot more well thought out from beginning to the end.
Well, one of the other benefits too is here at Alpha, our program sets you up to work with professionals in every field. Um, when you go to just a one-stop shop, you work with the same person all the way through, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have that knowledge that's going to help you out and make sure that it's done correctly. When you sit down to do your custody agreement, you're talking to a parenting mediator, a professional in that field, a therapist. When you do the financial mediation, you consider the factors that the court looks at in determining that. You sit down with the attorney to help you go through that. When you sit down for the tax mediation, you do that with an accountant. So here at Alpha, we offer that ability to meet with a professional that will specialize in that area and make sure that it's being done the correct way.
Right. And from what I understand, a lot of times the whole idea of the tax mediation, which um, explains to people what are the results of the agreement that you are working on. What are the ramifications? I mean, most people probably don't think about it while they're going through a divorce, but the following year, they will be filing differently. I mean, in Pennsylvania, you're married or you're single, or you're widowed. But it's not it's and that opens up a whole other set of regulations that you have to follow. And if it's not thought out ahead of time, I can imagine that some people are very unpleasantly surprised.
Right. We're trying to make you aware that it's more than just, hey, taking a look at the dollar signs and how much you're getting. But we're planning for the future here. You're going to live your life a little bit differently as an individual. So you need to take into consideration, budgets. How much is this going to cost? Am I going to be able to take on a house and pay for all the maintenance that's involved with that? These are the questions that we're going to discuss and bring up. So you're taking them into consideration.
How can people, for example, of course, nobody ever goes into marriage thinking about divorce, but if the situation occurs, um, how can they tell that that perhaps the idea is that they're looking at mediation, and are they getting steered in a different direction? Are they being recommended to do something else? And how can people like be aware of what it is they're hearing, given that they're not used to talking about divorce or the legal situation?
Well, a lot of the situations that'll happen is that a firm will advertise, that they do mediation and they also do litigation. So they get you in the door with that mediation hook because you think that it's going to be a cheaper alternative. And then they'll say, "Oh, wait, no, we can't do this. Both parties need to be represented here, and we can do that for you as well." And they set you up for that adversarial process.
Yeah, right. And so I would imagine then that, both parties being represented by the same firm is kind of a little counterproductive for one of them.
Right, right. And then they're forced to go out and get an attorney of their own as well. And then the costs, they start to mount, as well as the timeline starts to become a little bit longer.
hmm what is pretty much the average in Alpha Center from the time a couple has made the decision to go with the Alpha Center program? Because I understand that in the state of Pennsylvania, 2 to 3 years is not unusual. That's not a surprise. But 2 to 3 years can certainly bankrupt you, not just financially, but emotionally.
Right, right. And it's a lot of it's based on the complexity of the case. If your willingness to come to an agreement. So I would say, to be fair, it's probably in the neighborhood of 1.5 to 3 months.
Wow.
Just depending on some factors.
And
Of
that's
course,
great. I
we're
mean,
not. I'm
go ahead.
sorry, Barbara. I was just going to add. Of course, we're not saying that you're going to get the actual legal divorce decree in that
hmm
time period.
hmm
Just the agreement, and then we'll go forward with filing the divorce at that point.
Right, right. And that it means that the couple have to be willing to, let's discuss this with our mediator and focus on coming to a resolution. And that, of course, is everything to uh, getting on with their lives, because there's a whole other world going to open up for these people once they think that divorce is done and now they're done. It's kind of like, once you're married, you don't have to worry about anything. Well, once you're divorced, there's another whole world waiting for you out there. And uh, it seems that, we as Alpha have more of um, an integrated team approach to this, so that every person involved has a serious level of expertise, with the attorney kind of guiding the whole, navigating everything and making sure everybody stays on track.
Right. That's what I tell a lot of my clients is that that's my role, is to kind of be the guide here. Be able to educate you and inform you about what the law is and what you would be looking at as if you were standing in court. But we're not going to go to court. We're going to do our best to keep you out of there. And
hmm
so I'll put this information in front of you, but you have to have the willingness to make these decisions.
hmm
And you're right. At the same time, it's kind of, hey, let's keep this moving forward. Let's keep this moving in the right direction. Um, a lot of the times when couples come in here with children, it's about the kids. Ultimately, we might want to argue over some petty things financially, but at the end of the day, we're here to be parents, and that's the main point of this is that co-parenting agreement,
Mhm.
moving forward. And as you were saying, if you end up with a timeline where it's taking you 2 to 3 years to decide that, that isn't good for anybody, especially the family. So
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. So what you're saying there is that, when you look at the Alpha program versus other programs, you have to look for the best value as opposed to, anybody can go down the street and buy a junker and find out that, oh yeah, it's gonna run forever, and it makes it right over the parking lot into the street and dies. And now you've got like a whole lot of can of worms there. Um, and that and that we have a team, and that the level of expertise is very high on each of them, and we all work collaboratively to make sure that the couple or the family are well taken care of.
that's our goal, is to work towards that, that amicable resolution. Um, to do our best to make it as fair as possible to both parties. And at the same time, like you said, the family is what's most important. We have to look out for the kids first, and go from there. And that's what we try to do. And I think that's reflected in that team approach as well as the price too. We're not trying to break the bank for anybody here. We're just trying to get them through this as easily as possible.
Right, right, because they're going to be remaining a family. So if one of them is in the poverty level and the other one is not, it's not good for it doesn't make for a good future.
Right.
Okay. Well, Mike, I want to thank you so much for being with here today, and for your guidance through what to look for when deciding on a divorce mediation program that will give you what you need to make it to your future. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Barbara.